So now let's get back to money. Let's get back to how do you invest during the pandemic? And I always ask the guests the same question. So how do you invest your money? Do you invest in stocks, for example?
Well, prior to this year, yes.
Okay.
I'm pretty boring right now because when I'm looking at how manipulated the markets are, it's a little hard for me to own anything other than Bitcoin. And I know that's a very extreme view, and I think most people just wouldn't agree with that. And that's fine.
May I ask, Preston, may I ask how much of your net worth you've got in percentage in Bitcoin? Is it 50%, 30%,
Well,
80%, everything?
I would put it this way. So it's hard for me to answer because I don't know what the market capitalization of my private company would be.
Okay.
But similar to like what Michael did, whatever retained liquid money I have, it's in Bitcoin.
Okay.
So it's a very similar situation as to what he has done. With that said, I think, if you forced me to pick some equities, I would tell you I like Square. I like companies that are going to benefit from this big transition. So PayPal, Square, those types of businesses.
What about mining stocks? Mining stocks like gold miners?
Not so much because and I thought you were talking crypto mining. I think it's extremely competitive. I don't have much of an interest in that space as far as gold miners. I think they're going to do fine. I think, I'm using, like Michael Saylor, I'm using Bitcoin as my unit of account for measuring the performance of things. So it's extremely difficult for me to look at something like gold and say, hey, I want to own that when I expect it to go down. It's just going to go down by so much in Bitcoin terms. So it's really hard for me to own it.
But the same, if you measure, for example, the Dow Jones or the S&P in gold, and especially in Bitcoin, actually you see the stock markets go down. You didn't earn any money in the last decades.
That's why I don't own any of it.
Okay, fair enough. Good point. Okay. I don't think the next question I don't have to ask you, but what do you think about bonds? Okay, we skip this one.
No, so let me pull on this thread a little bit more. So
please.
I'm a hardcore value investor, and I know it probably sounds anything but that right now, right?
Exactly.
But here's the thing that I'll tell you about value investing is it's based on an assumption that no one ever talks about. And the assumption that no one ever talks about is when you're doing value investing, you assume that you're dealing with sound money or a sound currency or one that's not being drastically debased, right? Because how can you perform any type of calculation if the units that you're using to measure things look like Alice in Wonderland and they're morphing and changing in a drastic way?
Yeah.
You can't perform economic calculation. And so, and this was a really crazy point for me. And I know I keep talking about Bitcoin, but I went back and I looked at Apple, and I looked at the top line revenue of Apple. And I mean, it was just going up like a freight train, right?
Yeah.
And then you look at the net income and it's just going up like crazy. I went back and I redenominated their top line and their bottom line, but I did it in Bitcoin based on the price that Bitcoin traded for that year when they closed out their 10K. And what I found, because I like to graph revenues, I like to graph net income to kind of see the trend and to see if it's starting to become impaired and whatnot. And when I did this and I redenominated the 10Ks for the last 10 years in Bitcoin, what I found is that the top line of Apple had been going down for 10 years. And the first time I looked at it, I was like, hold on, this can't be right.
It is.
Right? And the free cash flows for Apple are going down for 10 years straight. And we all know what they're doing in fiat nominal terms, right? And I remember that was kind of the aha moment for me where I told myself, hold on a second. I don't think I should be buying stocks or be doing value investing anymore, because the unit that I'm using to conduct these calculations is so warped and so mutilated that it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And it was kind of an aha moment for me. And I know for most people listening to this, they're thinking this guy is off his rocker, but I guess we'll check back in 5 years and see how off my rocker I was.
Yeah, just look at the last 10 years. Bitcoin went up 6 million%. It's crazy. It was the best performing asset in history, and I think the next decade will be the same, because we will see people will lose trust in the monetary system. They will lose trust in bonds, in institutions, in the dollar, in the euro, and it all will go bust. And then they will look for a safe haven. And I think gold will definitely be a part of it, but most people will go into Bitcoin, and Bitcoin will just rally, and it will be epic, I guess. I'm a big fan of diversification. You have different eggs in your nest, so you can participate on this run or on this bull run. And so I wouldn't just invest in one asset, because it's too dangerous. Even I'm a big Bitcoin maximalist. I believe in Bitcoin. It's not only to get rich or something. I like the philosophy. I think it's a big chance for humanity. So to get into a golden age with a more democratic monetary system, to distribute wealth more widened. And we are really, really early right now. That's my opinion.
So I really like your point, because somebody who'd be hearing my talking points and hear that, my one position for the liquidity that I have is in Bitcoin. Yeah. They might say, well, that's completely irresponsible, because you got to have some type of diversification to your portfolio. For a person that's thinking that, what I would tell you is my free cash flows that I make on a monthly basis have nothing to do with Bitcoin whatsoever. Bitcoin could go to zero, and I'm still pumping out free cash flows that will support my lifestyle for the rest of my life, right? Like, I have nothing to worry about. If Bitcoin would go to zero, trust me, I'm in good shape. I don't have to worry about myself, right? Yep. So that's a unique situation that not everybody's can make that bold play. I would argue Michael Saylor's in the exact same situation. Yes. Michael Saylor can take such a bold position. Bitcoin could go to zero tomorrow, and guess what? His company's still making $30-40 million a year, and he's profitable, and the assets of his business are not impaired whatsoever. So I think what you have is, Warren Buffett would say, I'm a great investor because I'm a businessman, and I'm a great businessman because I'm an investor. Yeah. And what I would tell you is, you get a lot of people in the finance space that are managing other people's money that are always thinking portfolio allocation, where you have to have diversification because it's other people's money. You can't have one position because that's a lot of risk, right? Where I think business owners can kind of look at things a little bit differently, because they do have diversification in the assets that are sitting on their balance sheet. They're just not assets like marketable securities that everyone's accustomed to seeing when you're running a hedge fund. So there's a big difference there for people to really kind of understand where I'm coming from when I say that I own Bitcoin, right?